Today you'll see that sometimes, inventors and researchers spend time working on some pretty strange ideas, but they're also important for showing the path not to follow. Ideas like this one, for electric meals. That's exactly what you heard. In 1920, a French researcher was convinced it was possible to sustain the human body with electrical energy. The article starts well saying, "Here is indeed a unique remedy to combat the high cost of living. To replace meats and other victuals, which are at present almost out of reach, by means of the electric fluid." Electric fluid was the term many used at that time to refer to electricity. But continuing with the reading, as the result of numerous methodically conducted experiments, this scientist has demonstrated, in effect, that it is possible to partially sustain the human body by means of electricity served in the form of low or high-frequency currents. Yeah, there was something very wrong with these experiments. Basically, the French researcher's reasoning was, if the body needs caloric energy to function, why not convey heat to the body by running an electric current through it? Why not? Sounds like a good idea. For this, the subject's body was connected, via metal electrodes, to a machine designed to produce high-frequency electric current. After that, the patient would stay there, being gradually electrocuted, with electric currents running through their entire body to the point of heating it. Hoping the professor hadn't miscalculated. According to the article, he believed that with this, he could convey up to 3,000 calories to the human body, to the point of increasing the patient's weight. You can see that he looks much healthier there in bed, don't you think? That's what we can call authentic pseudoscience. But let's cut him some slack. It was 1920 after all. The problem is when people have strange ideas like these in the 21st century. This is also one of the reasons researchers should conduct a literature review in scientific work, to avoid trying out crazy ideas like this. There's always some researcher somewhere who has already tried something similar. Let's move on to the next invention. But this idea here really got me. Who wouldn't want to learn while sleeping? Well, working while sleeping, that's a bit much. Although, there are plenty of people out there who work like that, right? But let's see what this 1921 invention by Hugo Gernsback is all about. A great inventor and pioneer of science fiction. The first argument presented in the article is that we spend a third of our lives sleeping, which the author refers to as another form of death. Indeed, some people look like they're dead. You could even turn on a jackhammer next to them, and they probably wouldn't wake up. According to Gernsback, this time spent sleeping is unproductive, which we now know is not true. Sleep is essential for the body to recover cognitive functions and organize the information gathered during the day, a process that will improve a person's productivity the next day. Anyway, I don't know much about this area, but I can say that a good night's sleep is essential. The argument presented in the article is that when we sleep in a familiar environment, our senses are suspended. We no longer see, hear, or smell, and so on. But even so, our subconscious remains active. We are still affected by things that fall outside the normal conditions of our sleep. An example he gives is the following. A man may be sleeping soundly near a busy railroad, where trains crash along every few minutes, and he will not wake up. He has become accustomed to the disturbance. But let a mouse start nibbling in a corner of his room, and he will wake up almost immediately. Why is this so? The reason is that the human body while asleep is only dead to the accustomed things, and the instant something unusual occurs, the sentinels of the particular sense affected immediately send out its warning. Based on this premise that our subconscious remains active, the writer Gernsback presents the idea that we could overlay learning onto the subconscious mind using a machine, which is presented in two versions. One version is the one shown on the cover. It's a type of audio device with headphones that plays audiobooks and lessons, recorded on a steel wire that passes between two electromagnets. In other words, an early type of audio device using magnetic tape. In the other version of the machine, he says the following. Possibly this method of superimposing learning on the subconscious mind, by means of a talking machine, will be developed so that records will be kept in a large central exchange. The subscriber will call up by radiophone and leave the number of the records that he or she may desire that night. Between midnight and 6 a.m., the desired records will be flashed out via radiophone. Is it just me, or is he presenting the idea of an on-demand audio service in 1921? What the author seems to have overlooked is that besides it being impossible to learn while sleeping, which is a shame, he would make the person's life a nightmare, never allowing them to rest. A week of poor sleep with that and anyone would go crazy. But aside from that, it's interesting that he anticipated two great inventions in this article, something similar to a cassette player and on-demand streaming services like Spotify. Okay, if you can't learn while sleeping, then let's stay awake with the Sleep Eliminator. The goal is to boost productivity. Look at this splendid future imagined in 1923. Everyone working non-stop thanks to the device. Let's see what it says. Mr. Gernsback in his article suggests in order to eliminate sleep, to remove the cause. True, you do have to sleep. He's probably about to suggest those giant Silicon Valley pillows for sleeping at work. Let's continue reading. The cause of sleep is increased blood pressure. Also certain changes in nerve cells after the body has performed a certain amount of work during the day. These causes are removed by d'Arsonval currents, which are set up in a huge electric coil, strung along the walls of the office as seen. These currents, as is well known, reduce the blood pressure. Look, I don't want to be a downer, but if this actually worked, people living next to transmission lines and substations would never sleep. This makes no sense at all, but moving on. The oxygen, as well as the ozone with which the air is charged in small quantities, helps to rejuvenate the system. Well, I'm not a health professional, but as far as I know, this whole ozone therapy thing still hasn't been proven. Controversial. Anyway, the Invention has several tanks over there in the corner, so there's no need to open a window to distract everyone. A secondary electrical system gives the nerves certain rhythmic shocks, almost imperceptible to the subject. Ah, now we figured out what keeps everyone awake in this office. These are used to stimulate the nerve cells that have become sluggish. It is thought that by these means, sleep can and will be eliminated entirely. Look, there's a glass insulator here under the chair and desk, and these wires are connected to the chair to apply some motivation to the employee. I think we can agree that with people getting these little rhythmic shocks, no one's going to sleep. I just have my doubts about whether they'd go along with it. Well, so far the ideas haven't been too great for boosting our productivity. We'll have to sit in the chair and work the traditional way. But how can we focus with so many more interesting things happening around us? In 1925, the writer Hugo Gernsback asked himself this same question. He wrote, "Perhaps the most difficult thing that a human being is called upon to face is long concentrated thinking." Yes, I agree. With that in mind, he invented the Isolator, a helmet made of wood, cork, and cotton, designed to eliminate any external distraction, such as noise from the window or visual information from the surroundings, like a fly buzzing or a curtain swaying. It was equipped with 2 glass eye holes, an air intake with a noise filter at this point, and an oxygen tube to provide extra air and prevent drowsiness. The promise was that with this, it was possible to reduce 95% of external noise, channeling only the visual information of what the person was supposed to read. The idea wasn't bad, but the hard part was enduring having this on your head. It's interesting to see how he thought of everything, even the use of the Invention in the summer. Notice a type of primitive air conditioner at this point, with a fan blowing air through blocks of ice. The fact is that, even though he tried to solve the problem, we would still have our own minds to distract us. As he himself says in the magazine article, even if silence reigns supreme, you will still be your own disturber half the time. The best thing to do is to find an isolated room that is well lit, ventilated, and free of distractions. And if that's not possible, there's also the option of using headphones with pleasant sound, or even without sound, just to signal that you don't want to be disturbed. Although we find these inventions from over 100 years ago funny, it's good to remember the obvious. They were created with the knowledge that inventors like Hugo Gernsback had at the time. They were imperfect solutions for many problems that still persist today. And imagining the future is always a big challenge. The likelihood of being wrong is huge. In fact, take a chance in the comments and try to guess a technology that you think will exist 100 years from now. Well, I'll wrap it up here. If you enjoyed this story, you'll also like these other ones appearing on the screen, and I'll see you in the next video.